WHAV.
Using WIC is easier than ever. Now you can use the WIC card instead of checks for your food purchases. WIC is a free nutrition program that helps working families stretch their food budget and make healthy choices. WIC helps families learn to shop for nutritious foods and offers resources like online nutrition education and an app to make shopping easier. Visit us online at mass.gov/WIC to find out if you qualify. This message is brought to you by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's WIC Nutrition Program.
For more information locally, call the WIC office at Community Action at 978-374-2191.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with Wave Weather. It'll stay clear to partly cloudy for the Merrimack Valley through the night. Low temperature mid-60s by morning. Some partial sun, but a lot of clouds developing Tuesday. Could be a shower or thunderstorm, low to mid-80s. Showers end Tuesday night, upper 60s. Mostly sunny, very warm and humid Wednesday, 85 to 90. This is Gary Best. Your next Wave Weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Camola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Now, good evening, everyone. This is Tim Coco. Obviously not Frank Camola. Frank is still out, but I am very happy to be with you tonight. And we have a couple of guests coming up. I want to tell you who they are right at the outset. But Jennifer Burns, Community Engagement Specialist, and Sergeant Jack Walsh of the Methuen Police Department are here to talk about their Community Addiction Resources Engagement Services. In other words, they care. It's the CARES program, and that aims to integrate public health and public safety practices to help address the opiate addiction problem, and perhaps beyond opiates. And we'll ask them those questions when they're on the program in just a few minutes. But obviously, the opiate addiction problem has taken many lives. And if I haven't said this on this program before, I'll say it now or repeat it. And that is even Haverhill. Haverhill is in the top 10, according to February numbers from the Department of Public Health. Haverhill is in the top 10 of opiate-related deaths. And we're going to find out what Methuen's ranking is. We're going to ask questions about how perhaps the communities can share information. Perhaps they're already doing that, and we'll see that. I'm going to ask Cindy to get my head a little closer to the top of the screen. And as we do live radio on TV, which is always a problem. Thank you, Cindy. And that is our photojournalist, Cindy Driver. Thank you. All right. And, of course, in Master Control, Chris Porter, the man with not as many jobs as he had, but starting a new one. Actually, Chris, why don't you tell us? You know, our listeners always want to know what you're doing with your fascinating career, but you are going to bring your oldies program to yet another radio station.
Yes, indeedy.
All right. Now, where are you going, and when does this start?
It's going to be in Nashua, New Hampshire, AM 900 and AM 1250 WGAM. That's in Nashua and Manchester, I believe. And we're pretty soon going to have 2 FMs coming on board as well.
All right, so I'm going to lose track of how many stations you work for and not get paid.
This one, there is a chance to make some money, so.
Uh-oh, folks, we might lose a producer. All right, well.
Don't worry, I'll still be here.
Oh, well, we appreciate that. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, of course, you can listen to this program and all of WHAV's programs at 97.9 on your FM radio dial. Great signal, bigger footprint than the original WHAV AM, and really a great sound, too. It's all modern equipment at the Silver Hill transmitting sites, and we've just heard more and more people embracing the program. I'll talk to you, and the programs. We'll talk to you a little more about that in a minute. But also, this program is seen on WHAV's Facebook page with a high-definition live stream broadcast, so you can see a radio show on television or on your computer or smartphone. And, of course, our old friends at HC Media Channel 22 in Haverhill carry the program on local cable television. Others, I believe Methuen is carrying us on either their government or public access channel, and because I know that Jerry from Methuen always calls after listening there. So many ways to listen to WHAV throughout the Merrimack Valley, whether it's on cable, whether it's online at WHAV.net, whether you want to watch at WHAV.TV, or just listen to FM radio as it was meant to be. As we usually do at the beginning of the program, I want to remind you of the Albee D's second-generation Italian bakery cake contest. Now, if you or someone you know is having a birthday or an anniversary in August, very easy. Call the program. Call 978-374-1900 and wish someone a happy birthday or a happy anniversary. It can be yourself. There's no rule against that. Chris will take your information, take the name of the recipient, and that name will be added to the hat. You come on the air and you simply wish someone a happy birthday or a couple a happy anniversary, and someone will definitely win a 7-inch cake, choice of vanilla or chocolate, from Albee D's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford. Now, we still have this question. I wonder if our judges at Kimball Tavern Antiques want to call on this or not. I think they made us hang on to the bowling alley one for half a year, but all right, you could win a $10 gift certificate, same as cash, to Kimball Tavern Antiques, corner of Salem and South Main Streets in Bradford. When I say same as cash, if the item costs $10 or less, it's free, or if it is more than that, then it's $10 off. And all you have to do is be the first person to answer this question, and really, 2/3 of the question has been answered. All right, the question is, name the man, first and last name, and nickname, first, last, and nickname of the man who collected hubcaps on Lowell Avenue. Apparently, it was quite a sight. Now, we have already been told his initials are C.A., and his nickname was Kista. So all you have to do now is give us his full name, and you could win the $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques. Quite a prize, and we really thank the management of Kimball Tavern Antiques. These are really community servants. You see how well they maintain that building. Wonderful character, a wonderful style, and really devoted to the community. And I thank them very much for their very long-time support of not only the Open Mic Show, but 97.9 WHAV. And let's take our first phone call, and then we'll get our guests in here shortly. You are on the Open Mic Show.
Hello, Tim.
All right, it is Brian.
When I was a little kid, I thought that Kista was the guy's name.
Oh, so you know the name?
Yeah, I heard it, but, I really didn't pay attention to the hubcaps or anything like that. But I remember in the neighborhood, because my relatives, and I still have relatives, at the corner of Lowell and Adele.
Okay. Did you try to answer the question?
No, I didn't even try.
Oh, all right. Well, it sounds like you might actually know who it is.
Who, Charlie Anderson?
The first name is right, not the last name.
That was just taking a stab at it. But I'll bet, hey, if Jason is out there listening, I'll bet he knows.
All right, so we just want the last name now. So we've got the first and the nickname. All right, and I think actually our judges had allowed us to give the hint of Charlie for the first name. So we have Charlie and we have Kista. What we need is the last name, and that's $10 gift certificate. It's just waiting for someone.
And the last name begins with A, so... I don't know what it is.
We've given a lot of clues on this one. This one might turn out to be harder than our famous bowling alley question.
That. What can I say?
All right, then. So what's on your mind, Brian?
Well, there's this scam that keeps on resurfacing. It's when you receive a phone call. Usually it's synthetic speech, but I must say the other day I got another phone call from somebody claiming to be with the IRS. I forget the first name, but she says, "This is so-and-so from IRS," and then she hung up. So I just want listeners to know that if they get a call like that, it's just a scam. Just hang up. Just ignore it.
No, absolutely. The IRS will not call you like that. And besides, I saw a video online where the person who received the call had a little bit of fun with the fake IRS caller.
Oh, yeah.
And he recorded the whole thing. But essentially, the IRS is asking you to buy Target gift cards to pay your taxes. Now, I mean, that,
yeah, right.
That really should be a red flag for some people. And I'm not trying to make fun of anyone who has been scammed. Certainly not trying to do that at all. But the IRS is not going to ask you for a Target card or a Western Union, MoneyGram, or whatever. I may be mixing up the brands of the products out there, but
just
no.
Hang up on them. My brother had some fun with them. Oh, huh, what?
Well, there you go. Now, Brian, actually, it's an excellent. It doesn't hurt to keep reminding people. And I will say there are all kinds of scams by email too. And I have to admit that some of them seem so close. Because you may have just opened a new credit card and suddenly there is a notice in your email box that your credit card issuing bank says they need to verify something. And if you're and they hope that there's a coincidence like that, the people behind these, because they hit 2 million people, you know that you haven't opened up a new WT Grant credit card, so you can ignore them. But those, I don't think anyone else has opened a WT Grant credit card. But if you an American Express, a Visa, MasterCard, or whatever, they create a phony thing, and you might have just done it, so you think it's real, and you click. Well, look at the email address if you can. Not what they say it is. Just hold your mouse over the address, and it'll show you its real address. And chances are your bank isn't located in Pakistan.
Right.
So, just a good shot at that, So, Brian, always good to be vigilant. Thank you for that reminder.
Well, I remember years ago when Tim Donovan worked here and he was handling this kind of thing. And he said that there was one resident that was so embarrassed about being ripped off that he actually moved out of Haverhill.
Really, that bad?
That bad.
Sorry.
That's
actually, Tim Donovan's a great guy. I used to see him on his bicycles, police bicycles downtown. I have to, I suppose sometime I have to ask Haverhill Police if they still have the bicycle. I guess they do. They do have some bicycle they're not troopers, officers.
Well, somebody told me that the bicycles that they use are mountain bikes.
Okay, are they? I don't know what you should use, so I'm not up to speed on that.
Well, I don't think that mountain bikes are really the right ones to use around here.
Now, I suppose I guess it depends where they deploy them. I don't know if they go to Winnickinny Park or something.
Yeah.
But actually, I never saw him there. I saw him usually downtown Haverhill. And I think there's other officers, too. I don't want to leave anybody out because they all did such a great job.
And speaking of the police, I was thinking how I heard that those scam artists that call and say that they're with the IRS actually have somebody stationed close by. So if you were to say, okay, all I have is cash, can you come by and get it? That they actually have somebody who would come by. Sometimes it's tempting to call the police and say, you want to send somebody up here to watch my house while they do this? But
yeah, I would say
they have enough to do already.
Yeah, and I would say the police probably would want to advise against people, trying to do their own entrapment. But good question for another time, though.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have maybe we'll have someone on from the police department on that particular subject. But I do hope you stay tuned, though, because we are going to have Sergeant Jack Walsh and Jennifer Burns of the Methuen Police Department to talk about community addiction resource engagement services in just a second.
I'll be listening.
All right, anything else? Any other prizes, cake, anything?
No, nothing like that.
All right, then, and I know that was mailed to the recipient of the contest.
Yes, she got it. She
all
told me.
right. By the way, friends, if you don't know this yet, you've got to get on Brian's Christmas card list or birthday card list or something because he's got quite a track record at nominating the right person to win. So.
Well, and this month I really didn't get a chance to nominate anybody because I was going to call in a certain one, and just before I was able to do that, her son called in.
Yes. Well, see, she's still in the running, and actually he is too. I'm going to remind Chris, we're going to split that, make sure that that's split in half. We have two names. There should be two separate birthdays. I think Mark took that one.
Yes,
right.
He did.
All right, well, thank you very much, Brian. Really appreciate your time.
All right, Tim, you have a good evening.
Thank you for your loyalty. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we are going to take a break, and I don't even know what we do during this break anymore. I suppose we'll find out together, folks. And then we're going to be back with Jennifer Burns and Sergeant Jack Walsh right here on the Open Mic Show.
Open Mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
This is listener-supported community radio, WHAV. WHAV is the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate. Catch the wave!
Suspense, a weekly anthology of notable melodramas from stage and screen, fiction and radio, presented every Monday night to bring you to the edge of your chair, to keep you in suspense. Listen to the new Suspense with a company of Hollywood actors and surprising guest stars, Monday nights at 10, with encore performances at 1 a.m., right here on WHAV. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Catch the wave, WHAV, Open Mic!
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamoa. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. And we're back on the Open Mic Show. I'm Tim Coco, General Manager of WHAV, filling in, and with me to my left is Jennifer Burns, Community Engagement Specialist. Further, to some of you on TV, it looks like he's down the hall, Sergeant Jack Walsh, both of the Methuen Police Department, and they're here to talk about the CARES initiative, Community Addiction Resource Engagement Services. Now, I have a lot of these answers because they've given me more than enough material, but I'm going to play dumb so our listeners can get all the same information. I don't know who wants to start, but tell us what CARES is.
Jen?
CARES is Community Addiction Resource Engagement Services, and what that means is it's an umbrella of providing resources to individuals in need of services for opiate or other addiction-related treatment.
And actually, I had that question actually before you came on. I said opiates, but then maybe there are other substances too. Mm-hmm. So you cover the gamut.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, when did your program begin?
So in October of 2015, both myself and Jacquelyn Ingersoll began as part-time employees with the department. So October 2015 is when it was implemented.
All right. And was there something in particular that drove the timing? Is it the climbing numbers of deaths, or were there other factors?
There were other factors. So in Methuen, Methuen Police Department is very engaged in community policing, and in 2013 a community group was formed. It's MVP ASAP, which is Merrimack Valley Prevention and Substance Abuse Project.
Yes.
And a lot of the community policing officers and the chief were very much involved in Merrimack Valley Prevention and Substance Abuse Project. And the theory of community policing is, getting the collaborative voice of the community to be able to solve community problems, and that's what the MVP was all about. Is essentially how are we going to address the addiction epidemic in the Methuen community. So that was the incubation of it, and then the very bold move of the chief out in Gloucester that started the Angel program essentially kind of opened the door for other departments to be able to do.
You want to tell our
like
listeners
this.
what the Angel program is?
The Angel program is, so essentially you can walk into the police department and you can turn over your drugs and paraphernalia and tell them that you're in need of service treatment, and they will help you to get into treatment. And we took that idea and developed a more comprehensive model.
All right. Now, not on this program, but on another WHAV news series we did, we had Essex County District Attorney Jonathan Blodgett on to talk about his diversion program, I think it's called, where I know this is a little bit outside of the scope of what you do, Sergeant, but in some cases, his program, maybe it's a first-time offender, maybe it's a small time, and they try to, if you will, save the person. They take them out of the court system, try a treatment program. Sometimes they fail, but they've had a pretty good success record. Do you or does the department have anything to do with diversion-type efforts? Again, you don't make the decision on whether to prosecute, but maybe you advise. I don't know.
Well, you're right. Yeah, we do sometimes advise. In Methuen, in particular, any substance abuse arrest or encounter gets a referral to CARES, and Jen and Jackie follow up with these people to see if they want to engage in some substance abuse treatment.
All right. So in addition to all the other great things, this program could clean up someone's record, or mean they have no record.
Yeah, depending on the specifics of that program you spoke to with the DA, that's true. Yes, depending on the previous record, if it's a first-time offense, they could perhaps do that.
All right. Now, obviously, without mentioning any names, can you describe either a typical scenario or maybe a specific scenario where your program really just saved the day for a family or an individual, or probably both?
Do you have any specific instances?
A lot of times. Okay, so I didn't know we were going to get specific.
Oh, well,
here we are on the spot. So,
well, if you're uncomfortable, then we can go to something else.
No, it's okay because a lot of what we do on a daily basis does help families and the individual we're trying to help. So, essentially, there was a young lady that one of our first clients that came to us through her mom's referral, and through that, we were able to refer her into detox, and then from there she went to a residential facility, and she's sustaining. She's doing well now, and her mom attends like family support groups. So they're both doing that. They're both in that healing process. So we don't just help the individual that has the addiction problem. We help anybody that's connected to that individual.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because I suspect that an individual with an addiction issue needs all the support they can get. So you want to bring the families on board, or spouses, or I don't know, friends, who knows what it might be. But I imagine every situation is different. Is that right?
It is. Because there are some people that come to us that have burnt all those bridges, and their families do not want to be in contact with them. So we would connect them to the recovery community within the community that they're in.
Let's bring this down to real basics. I noticed you addressed it in your brochure, and you know what? I think it's important, actually, that we go to the basics. What is addiction?
Addiction is a brain disease. And the symptoms is behaviors. So ultimately, you can be addicted to anything, good or bad. People can get addicted to, buying shoes. People can get addicted to drugs and alcohol.
What about coffee?
Coffee's an addiction. Coffee's a mind-altering addiction.
I usually have a cup right there, and I'm going out of my mind that I forgot it, but that's all right.
That's okay. That's okay.
I need an intervention right now.
That's okay. So it is a brain disease. And the unfortunate thing about individuals with addiction to substances is that their behaviors are usually undesirable in the community and with their families. Like somebody that needs money will probably go out and steal. If they're not making it, they steal from their loved ones, they commit crimes. So it's an undesirable behaviors that people engage in to get the substances that they want.
All right. With that being said, we have a few minutes before news, and we'll obviously continue this after that because you've got some events coming up I want to make sure we work in. But what are some of the goals of the CARES program?
So we want to meet the individuals where they are. Sustained recovery is the goal, obviously, reducing recidivism of crime and substance abuse in the community, and to help them to sustain long-term recovery, reduce stigma around it also. That's why we do a lot of community events and education, is to reduce stigma, because when we think of somebody in addiction, we don't think of a successful businessman or woman that gets up and goes to work every day, or addiction can affect anybody and everybody, and there's a lot of societal stigma around that, which keeps people from getting treatment or seeking treatment. Our criminal justice system is overloaded with individuals with untreated addiction and mental health, and it's the new institution now. Our jails are the new institutions for people with addiction and mental health problems.
Actually, excellent point, because those of a certain age, my age and up, I think, remember that there were hospitals and whatnot, and we went through a process called deinstitutionalization. And although well-intentioned, there are people who fall through the cracks to this day. Is that right?
That is true.
All right. And then as far as taking this message to the community, what does that involve?
What, some of the workshops and educational things we do?
Well, it could be that. Do you ever have and I don't want to plant ideas because maybe you have better examples than I could possibly dream of, but do you ever have a family member come to you and say, listen, my son, my daughter doesn't admit to having a problem, and I don't want them to eventually go to jail? Is that a likely scenario?
There have been times where we've been able to reach the person actually in that type of situation. So there have been parents, there have been loved ones that have contacted us, and the individual does not want to get help. But we also explain that there's help in many different forms. It's not just going away to a detox. There's community resources that you can do a detox within the community. There's 12-step fellowships that we can refer people to. There's sober yoga that's in Salem, New Hampshire. There's other resources in the recovery community.
Well, that's a good question. So these resources aren't all in Methuen?
No.
All right, so they're throughout the area. And I suppose, obviously, we have listeners in Andover, North Andover, Haverhill, Plastow, Atkinson. Are there, I imagine you can't serve the whole area. You have to serve just Methuen, but are there resources? Do you make referrals if someone calls you?
Absolutely, and we do service more than Methuen residents. So anybody that has...
Then it turned out to be a good question.
Yes.
I lucked out.
My co-worker, Jackie, is better versed with New Hampshire resources. She's a New Hampshire resident, and I'm learning about New Hampshire resources, and I'm better versed in Massachusetts. But we provide referrals all over the state. We also have scholarship opportunities in Florida, too, for individuals. There's a couple of facilities that we know are legitimate facilities, and they're not part of that whole scam that was talked about a few weeks back in the Boston Globe, where we have scholarship beds for individuals, too.
Okay. Now, you mentioned scholarship, so I'm assuming you mean this would be of no cost to them.
Correct.
Now, and then in other cases, is it just your medical insurance
Yes.
that would cover this?
Yes.
That would do that? Now, okay, in light of everything you've said, and we're going to continue this, obviously, after the news, how does someone reach you how do they raise their hand to say, I have a problem and I need help?
They can call us on the phone.
Now, is that this number?
I can be reached at 978-701-7782. Jackie can be reached at 978-701-8195. If they called the police department and say they wanted, the Methuen Police Department, and wanted to speak to either one of us, we both have direct lines at the station also.
So if they're driving in the car right now and a family member can't take this number down, they can look up Methuen Police and still get to you.
They can drive to the police station as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they say they would need help. Go to the window and say they need help.
And you're open 24 hours a day, of course, right?
Yes.
Ah, okay. That's an excellent point. Before we go to news, then, I see you have some other methods. Can people reach you through your Facebook page?
They can. They can message us on Facebook.
Do you find there are people who are afraid to call the police? They're afraid they might get in trouble. They're afraid they're going to put themselves on your radar. And if so, what can you say to reassure them that it's a good thing, not a bad thing?
So I'm a civilian employee. I'm not a police officer, and the police department hired me to assist individuals to help them get the services that they need. So we're not there to get people into trouble. I mean, obviously, if you're breaking the law and you're not supposed to be breaking the law, obviously, there's repercussions for that. However, if you're calling us and looking for help for your addiction problem, we're not going to charge you. I don't have the authority to.
Even better. I mean, you can't.
Right.
And you hope not to.
Right. So if people come to the station or call Jackie or Jen, we generally don't get involved on the police side. If we happen to come across people on the street with drugs, we'll arrest them. We'll give them a referral, and hopefully at some point down the line, that diversion that we spoke about earlier can come into play. We'll enforce the existing laws.
Very good. All right, we're going to have a lot more, folks, but we're going to take a break now for local news, local weather here on 97.9 WHAV. We'll be right back.
Open mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 7:01.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Mount Washington's Walter Budger Wysocki Park could soon be converted from passive recreation to an active children's park with swings, modern seesaws, a jungle gym, and more. That's the vision of Wysocki's son Bob and Thomas White, one of 70,000 children who call the Haverhill Boys Club home. Wysocki and White met Thursday with David Van Dam, Mayor James Fiorentini's chief of staff, to discuss possible upgrades. White explained the plan.
We always wanted it to be a place for the kids to come play because, Walter was so dedicated to the children of Haverhill. We wanted the park dedicated to him to have the kids come there and use it as often as possible.
When the park was rededicated last year, Fiorentini expressed interest in having more places for children to play. Wysocki and White plan to have a professional design of the park, which is bounded by Curtis, Tremont, and Central Streets and Park Avenue. Van Dam confirmed there may be federal community development block grants and other money to make the project a reality. For White, now of Merrimack, the project carrying on Wysocki's vision is personal.
I just know that all he did for the community, and, I grew up going to the Boys Club Camp Tasker up in Newton, New Hampshire, and, he did a lot for the kids of Haverhill.
Wysocki Park was first named 17 years ago with the support of former Mayor James Rorak and the City Council. The site was selected because it was near Wysocki's childhood home on Arch Street.
We got that park dedicated to Walter Wysocki, who headed up the Boys Club for 57 years here in Haverhill. He's got the longest tenure of anybody with the Boys Club in the history of the country.
The park was originally refurbished with money donated by William Cavallaro, founder of the former Camelot Systems. A monument was installed and a flagpole, benches, picnic tables, and trash receptacles were placed. At first, however, it was subject to vandalism, White said. He said there were frequent calls to Christopher Goodrow of the Essex County Sheriff's Department to bring in teams and equipment to clear graffiti. Then, he added, the city administration and Haverhill Police instituted a curfew, installed a camera, and began patrolling it more frequently. There have been no incidents in the last few years.
The city has taken some steps, and the vandalism has really been curbed.
Interestingly, the former Washington Street Park was, more than 100 years ago, to be the centerpiece of a fashionable neighborhood, White explained.
Group of developers from Boston that wanted to make that like a high rent, I shouldn't say high rent, high dollar development. And they were trying to attract people from Boston. You know, since the train came up through here, they're trying to attract people from Boston to move up here and advertise this as a ritzy section of town.
The park was to be the Silver Hill Aqueduct to provide well water for the development. School committee man Paul Magliacchetti is the first candidate to confirm he will seek the 3rd Essex representative seat to be vacated by Representative Brian Dempsey in September. Magliacchetti, who ran for state senate 5 years ago as an independent, told WHAV he has been registered as a Democrat for the past 4 years and will run in the Democratic primary. I believe that I have the experience, knowledge, and ability to fill the position held by Chairman Dempsey, he said. This is a wonderful opportunity to serve the good people of the great city of Haverhill and be Haverhill's voice on Beacon Hill, he added. Magliacchetti is a past president of the school committee, managing partner of the law firm Sheehan, Schiavone, Jutras, and Magliacchetti, current chairman of the board of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce, board member of Bethany Homes, St. John the Baptist Church Finance Council, an incorporator at Pentucket Bank, and a coach for Riverside Bradford Little League. He was previously an executive with K Manufacturing Technologies of Haverhill. Other names being discussed as possible contenders are Haverhill City Councilors Andy Vargas and Thomas Sullivan, and school committee members Scott Wood and Sean Toohey. In September, Dempsey will become Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at ML Strategies, a Boston lobbying firm. No dates for special primary or final elections has been set. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Nick Harper. The U.S. Secret Service is pushing back against a claim by President Trump's lawyer that the agency would have prevented any nefarious meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer. An Australian national has been shot dead by police in the U.S. state of Minneapolis, allegedly after reporting a crime. And it's claimed the United Arab Emirates is hacking Qatari media sites as part of the regional crisis.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with Wave Weather. It'll stay clear to partly cloudy for the Merrimack Valley through the night. Low temperature mid-60s by morning. Some partial sun, but a lot of clouds developing Tuesday. Could be a shower or thunderstorm, low to mid-80s. Showers end Tuesday night, upper 60s. Mostly sunny, very warm and humid Wednesday, 85 to 90. This is Gary Best. Your next Wave Weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
Your membership enables WHAV to remain local and independent. Consider joining at WHAV.net. Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV, Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. And we're back on the Open Mic Show, 8 minutes past the hour, 97.9 FM WHAV. I believe we have a caller from Methuen who'd like to talk to the Methuen police here. Are you there, caller?
Good evening, Tim. How are you?
Jerry, nice to hear from you. Would you have a question for our guests?
Hey, I'm not going to talk about the Merrimack River, that's for sure.
Okay.
Basically, what I wanted to ask is, propose, is that there's something for your guest tonight. Of course, you know we lost our son last year to opiates.
No, that's such a shame.
And
I'm sorry.
It was a very bad situation, and we had an opportunity to find out an awful lot about the program in Massachusetts, and but since that time, I think there has been some improvement. I know that the Commonwealth funded, the governor funded, provided funds for education and provided funds for beds. But other than that, there was really nothing. For example, as a result of our episode, we found out that after it was all over, that there was only one medical examiner in the state laboratory. It was hard to get staff for the state laboratory because of the scandal that went on there. I'm a chemist myself, and I wouldn't want to even work there.
Okay.
And then the other thing is I think we're really in a war, actually. And I think that the police department and the state police, for example, the state police officer who was handling my son's case, he had 20 some odd other cases to investigate. It's just impossible.
Actually, really. Jerry, why don't you hold right there, because you've got a couple of good questions. Let's get those out.
All right, thank you.
No, hold on, and let's go through those questions. Your caseloads. Do you having any trouble with caseloads?
Well, we do the best we can with what we have. Clearly, this is an epidemic, so there's all kinds of high volumes of cases. So it can, in some cases, be difficult. But
I'm sorry, Tim, I can't hear.
Oh, right. He said that they have high volume, and it is difficult, but you do keep up.
We do our best to keep up. As we spoke about earlier, we are in the midst of an epidemic. We do the best with what we have.
And then the other one that Jerry kind of hinted at was funding. Any state money, or is the city of Methuen paying entirely for these services that you so well provide?
The police department gets a myriad of grants, both from federal and state sources. I can't speak to with specifics, the number amounts, but we get grants.
Have a budget book. It's
right.
Probably that big.
We do get grants from federal and state sources. Yes.
All right, Jerry. Does that help answer a couple of questions?
Actually, no, it doesn't, because I don't think there is enough money, really.
Okay.
I think that what we have to have here is a balanced program. Education. Education. Beds for for patients. In addition to that, we need higher police presence. The other thing is that there has to be some kind of an agreement between the state police and the local police. Who knows better than the local police? And in the situation that my wife and I went through, is as soon as the state police showed up on the premises, they took over. And I thought that was, that was kind of odd. Who would know better?
So there's some protocol issues. I bet you don't want to go there.
I'm not familiar with your case, sir, so I can't speak with specifics. I can't. I don't know.
All right, but I think I know what you mean, though. There's some protocol issues, but I imagine there's some communication that takes place. Maybe it depends on the officer or the situation. But good point, Jerry. And you mentioned beds. Again, I think that's outside of the scope of this, but there are more beds being created through the sheriff's department. Is that right? And that kind of thing. So, but Jerry, good points. Anything else?
And one other thing is that as a result of the lack of a medical examiner in the state police situation, only one medical examiner. In order to get payment for burial, it took us 7 months. 7 months before we were provided with a death certificate. So that's another thing that the laboratory and the medical examiner's office has to be funded. Really, it has to be a balanced program. It has to. I think that there's a need to. I think that we're in a war, really, and I think that there's need to really beef up the police presence, whether it's state or local. In addition to that, it would certainly help, I think, to get quick results. And that's why I would propose, because Lawrence, etc., Methuen, Haverhill, I would say also is the center of the opiate problem. I think that maybe a satellite laboratory, and I know just the laboratory that I'm not going to name it tonight, but I know there is a laboratory that would be perfectly capable of doing this quick analysis so that we could, either get the offenders into court and in jail very rapidly. And
all right, Jerry, you raised some good points. I think, frankly, and this is in WHAV's white paper we've done on community service, I think there are many more components of this that are outside of what CARES is doing, but CARES is certainly a critical part of it. And then maybe we can have additional guests on over time to talk about some of the things that you've just brought up, about the number of beds, the medical examiner.
Tim, it has to be a balanced program, really. But there's not enough funding to the police and local state police and the local police to begin with. There is money for education. There is money for people like you have your guests on. There is money for beds, but there's not enough money for the state police and local police, and there's got to be a need in the medical examiner's area and the laboratory. It must be awful hard because of the scandal that went on, that was ongoing at the state police laboratory. It must be awful hard to get, even a college graduate. I would certainly think twice before I would go to work there.
I would hope that in time that'll self-correct. But we have to take a break now, Jerry. But thank you very much for your insight. I really appreciate your call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a brief break for Community Spotlight. Then we'll be back and talk about some upcoming events that people may want to know about. We'll be right back on the Open Mic.
Open Mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
Last year, WHAV helped local nonprofits by airing nearly 10,000 community spotlight messages. WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Gary Best. Do you need to know if it's going to be hot or cold, wet or dry? Well, find out every half hour, 7 days a week with WAVE Weather. I'll keep you in touch with up-to-the-minute reports covering the greater Merrimack Valley and beyond. It's WHAV for accurate weather when you want it.
Community Spotlight.
The 3 B's, balance, bones, and brains, are all addressed in fitness classes for seniors at the Haverhill Council on Aging. A workout that includes balance training to prevent falls, strength training to increase bone density, and age-appropriate trivia contests that challenge the brain are combined with a selection of music every week. Classes are held every Monday, 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and on Fridays from 11 a.m. until noon. The Haverhill Council on Aging is located at 10 Welcome Street. For details and to register for a class, call the Council at 978-374-2390, extension 11 or 16. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Frank Camola.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Camola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. And we're back here on the Open Mic Show with Jennifer Burns, Community Engagement Specialist, and Sergeant Jack Walsh. Tell us about some things that are coming up that are of interest to the community. I think you have one coming up in August and one in September. I don't know who wants to grab that.
So on August 31st is National Overdose Awareness Day. So in Methuen, it will be our second annual overdose vigil. We are going to be having it from 6 to 8 p.m. on August 30th at the Riverside Park, which is on Riverside Drive in Methuen, same place where they lit off the fireworks.
So this is a vigil. This is honoring those that have been lost.
Exactly.
All right. And this is the second annual. Did you have people who came up to you after the first and said, I didn't know your services existed? Or do you find that even today for any reason?
Yes.
All right, so this is good that we get this word out. Mm-hmm. And then, I suppose, more on the prevention side, you have another second annual event.
Yes. So September is National Recovery Month, so many cities and towns across the United States celebrate September as National Recovery Month, and a lot of events happen in the month of September. So to reduce stigma and to kind of put a positive face on people in recovery and the police, community policing, we are going to have our second annual recovery walk in Methuen, and that will be at the Loop from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on September 24th. And it is a family-friendly event. There'll be face painting, there'll be music, we're going to have a raffle, there'll be activities for youth, and we will be walking around the Loop in Methuen for about, 20 minutes. I think we did it last year.
Okay. All right, so those are some things. And then, probably in our little bit of time that we have left, I really didn't get a chance to ask Sergeant Walsh too many questions, but what is your the fact that you're here means this is more of your assignment than other things, or?
Yes, it's part of my assignment. I work in the Community Outreach Division, but I'd just like to mention that I think we're here today because police, certainly Methuen Police and statewide and nationally, as a matter of fact, realize we can't arrest our way out of this problem, so we have to begin to look at it in a different light.
Well, that's a good point. That this is, well, as Jerry said, a kind of a balanced approach, and that I don't know that I'm going to say anecdotal because I don't expect you to have facts and figures at your fingertips. Are you starting earlier, or is this the same?
So we do collect data, and the average age of onset is 12.6 years.
Really?
Yes. And
12.6 years.
Right, and it's 34% are starting with marijuana.
Now, I suppose that's a risky question for me to ask, but is marijuana a gateway? Or is that not something you're prepared to answer?
It depends who you're asking. My personal and professional, I would say yes, according to the statistics that we've seen of the individuals that we've been servicing for the past 22 months.
We had a big debate a couple of years ago. I think Methuen's having it now, and I think Haverhill's going to have it again. But before the recreational marijuana vote, there was the medical marijuana, and we had an applicant to put a medical marijuana dispensary here. And our city council heard really passionate speeches, including one from Dr. John Maddox, who's our school pediatrician. And I would say that maybe single-handedly, although I'm sure there are others, Dr. Maddox got the city council to not approve, I guess, what Department of Public Health would like to have as a letter of non-opposition or a letter of support. So I think that there was a feeling in Haverhill that it is a gateway. But there are others who argue, no, that can't be the case. Maybe it just depends on the individual. I don't know.
It absolutely would depend on the individual and their brain chemistry.
I suppose that makes a lot of sense, since that's what we're talking about. All right. Why don't we go through... well, is there anything that you want to make sure you get in that I haven't asked about? Otherwise, we'll talk to people about how they can reach you again.
I think we covered everything.
I think we covered everything we'd like to.
All right. Well, I really do appreciate your time. How can someone reach you again?
So
either the program, the services, or just to raise their hand and say, I need help.
they can reach us at the police department 24 hours a day, just to walk into dispatch and let them know that they're looking to speak to a care specialist. I can be reached at 978-701-7782, and Jackie can be reached at 978-701-8195.
And all of this is online, too. It's in the Methuen Police Department's tab on the Methuen city website.
Correct.
Sorry, I almost said town. I did kind of say it.
Used to be a touchy subject, I guess.
I remember. That's why I'm sorry. And then, of course, you're on social media everywhere.
We are.
I was just looking at this list. I'm rather impressed. Methuen Police on Twitter, Methuen Police on Facebook, on YouTube, on Google+, on Path. We're on Path, too, but I don't know what it is. And I think that's Instagram, right?
It is.
I have to learn
Very good.
some of the term. Yeah, that's like the new romper room, identify the symbols for social media. All right, then. And then I suppose on social media you can't possibly be monitoring that 24/7, or is someone in dispatch looking at it?
No, our social media is not monitored 24/7.
All right, so the best thing to do, go to the police station.
If they're able to go to the
Call.
police station, go to the police station, otherwise call.
And then when someone, let's just run through in a couple of minutes here. I know there are no typical scenarios, but if someone were to call you, do you send someone to the home? Do you arrange a meeting at the police station, or does it depend on whether the person drives or their needs? How would that work?
All of those factors factor into it. So ultimately, we can do an intake over the phone with the individual, kind of do a brief intake and assessment, gauge where they're at. We do meet people in the community at a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts. We have had individuals come to the station. One thing that I forgot to add is mentioned earlier is that we do respond to overdoses that happen in the Methuen community, also at the hospital.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you actually go to the Holy Family and
yes.
Well, that's very interesting. Okay. Well, really appreciated the time you spent with us on a very difficult subject, and I'm sure I speak for all of our listeners that they're grateful that there are people who, if you pardon the term, care. Maybe, and wasn't trying to have a pun, but it is Community Addiction Resource Engagement Services. But I think that most people recognize that it isn't, as you said, Sergeant Walsh, you can't arrest your way out of this. This pops up in the best families, doesn't it?
It does, yes. It doesn't discriminate any family at any time.
All right, so really appreciate having both of you here, Sergeant Jack Walsh and Jennifer Burns, Community Engagement Specialist. I'm sure we're going to be talking more in the future. Appreciate your time. Of course, we're going to go to local weather right now, and then we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show and Open Lines. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Open mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 7:28.
Try listening to WHAV in your car or anywhere on your mobile phone. For fast access, visit WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
Hi, Tom Bergeron here. I started at WHAV in 1972. And look, WHAV's still here, but it won't be if you don't help support it. Go to WHAV.net. Become a contributor. Keep us going.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with Wave Weather. It'll stay clear to partly cloudy for the Merrimack Valley through the night. Low temperature mid-60s by morning. Some partial sun, but a lot of clouds developing Tuesday. Could be a shower or thunderstorm, low to mid-80s. Showers end Tuesday night, upper 60s. Mostly sunny, very warm and humid Wednesday, 85 to 90. This is Gary Best. Your next Wave Weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. I'm Tim Coco, and we're back on 97.9 FM, WHAV, and the Open Mic Show. Very, very pleased to have Jennifer Burns and Sergeant Jack Walsh here on the program. Difficult subject, but it is, I suppose, there's some solace that it is being addressed at all levels of government. As I mentioned during the program, District Attorney Jonathan Blodgett is working on a diversion program, so first-time or small-time offenders don't go through the criminal process. They go to treatment, and it's not that they get off, because if they're monitored and if there's some recidivism, they get back into the system. But it's a start. And then, of course, with the CARES program in Methuen, again, more efforts and resources available to families. And we didn't go through all of that, but if you're a family member and you suspect a loved one, a child, perhaps even a neighbor has a problem, you might very well find helpful to call your local police department. Methuen has its CARE program, but there are officers in all of the departments, I think, on both sides of the border that can be helpful. And if they can't help you, they'll know who can. So that's a good situation to at least know that there are resources available. Now, you may have heard me reference a WHAV white paper. That is something we've developed an internal document. It is available on request about some of the key issues in our community. That's one of the things a community radio station should do, is look at key issues. Public safety and education, the opiate epidemic are among the things that are in WHAV's white paper about where it can make a difference, where WHAV can make a difference. And we're going to have open lines for the rest of the program. Perhaps a subject that maybe some of you want to talk about, and I'm going to ask you to be kind. We're going to have another election coming up. We don't know the date yet. That's an oddity in itself. But as you may know, Representative Brian Dempsey, and I've known Brian since he was on the Haverhill City Council, and he, as a teenager, maybe he was a little bit older by that point, but I was a young reporter myself, and he worked his way all the way up to, I would argue, third in command of the Commonwealth. There's the governor, there's the Speaker of the House, and there's the Chairman of Ways and Means. Now you'd say, well, wait a minute, what happened to the Senate? Well, oddly, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, budgets start in the House. So the House becomes a very powerful body. And the Speaker DeLeo, has had to find a replacement. But Representative Dempsey worked on, I think, at least 7 budgets. I imagine it's pretty stressful, especially the last couple of years where it seems like state revenues aren't keeping up. Now, we hear that from time to time. I think it's a subject for another day. I'll digress for just a second and say that it should be eye-opening for all of us that if everybody is working, I mean, we're near what they call full employment. If everyone is working and state revenues aren't going up, then that means wages are stagnant. Now, that's a subject for another day, but let's keep that in our back pockets. But Representative Dempsey, now really, maybe not since Representative Fran Bevilacqua, or maybe not ever, has anyone been so effective at bringing help to the city of Haverhill, to serving his constituents. Representative Dempsey's district, unlike many others, is only in Haverhill. It doesn't cross into any other communities. Haverhill has other representatives who share parts of Haverhill with other communities, such as Representative Linda Dean Campbell, kind of Methuen area, or Lenny Mira, West Newbury and Haverhill, and Diana DeZoglio, kind of Bradford and Methuen and nearby areas. So, but Brian's district is entirely within the city of Haverhill, and he has decided to resign in September to take a job as Chief Operating Officer at ML Strategies. That's a Boston lobbying firm. ML, you may recognize the initials, Mintz Levin, a well-known law firm I think you drive under their building when you're on 93 going into the tunnels or coming out of the tunnels. In any event, it's a prestigious job, and I suppose we haven't asked Brian, on the program to talk about this, but you reach a certain age, you've got grown children, and you're starting to think about retirement. You're trying to think what you have for a nest egg, and if you're going to have to work, all of us have to deal with this. We have to work past 62, past 65, past 67. I saw a statistic today that more and more seniors are working well into their 70s, not just because they want to be busy, although that's part of it. They do this because they need the money. And I suppose we all reached that point. I don't know what Brian Dempsey's criteria was, but clearly he's going to have more money, going to have less prestige. I think maybe he would argue with me that that's not the case, but really the chairman of Ways and Means, a top position, and Haverhill's benefited tremendously. Look at the projects downtown, Harbor Place, and the forthcoming project by Salvatore Lapoli. Sal may not need as much public funding, but there are components of his project that do, whether it's a parking garage or whether it's access to the riverfront boardwalk, all kinds of things like that. But silently over many years, the Haverhill once owned a hospital. And it wasn't an old hospital. It was a relatively new hospital. The business goes back 100 years, but Haverhill built a brand new campus in 1984. It opened in 1984. Enormous expense to build and equip a brand new hospital, and it closed in great debt. Brian Dempsey delivered about $2.5 million a year, I think with a couple of bad years of state budgets, but for the most part has ever since to help keep that debt under control. Whomever replaces him is going to be a freshman state rep. The very bottom, I always make the joke, the office behind the boiler at the State House. I'm not sure where the office will be, but yet there are people who are seeking the seat, and there's one who has first out of the gate is school committee man Paul Magliacchetti, the first to announce, the first to get out there with that word. But there will be more. There will. Maybe you have a thought on that. Let's take a call and see if our caller wants to discuss that or something else. You are on the Open Mic Show.
Hey, Tim, this is Greg over in Bradford. How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you, Greg?
Hanging in there. I I don't know if it's the case today, but I know at one time Brian Dempsey did have part of Bradford in his district.
You're right, he did.
And I don't know if he still does, because as a matter of fact, I live on Tudor Court in Bradford. And at one point in time, the district ran right down the middle of Tudor Court. The even side of the street was Diana's district. The odd side of the street was Brian's district. As a matter of fact, I think when he campaigned, he knocked on my door, and I told him he was on the wrong side of the street. But that was okay.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Well, I think the reason is that Haverhill's population has grown. In order to keep the same number of people in each representative seat, there's some moving of the lines. Some would say it's gerrymandering. Did you remember that odd district that existed that disappeared, and that was Representative Barbara L'Italien's district? That included Ward Hill at one point and Andover.
She included, I think she was a senator, if I'm not mistaken.
She is now. She is now, but she started out as a rep, and it was this odd district that had just a little piece of Haverhill, and then we didn't have.
Sue Tucker had a few districts. She was from Andover, but she had a few districts and a few precincts in Lawrence.
Okay, so
that I know. And Diana DiZoglio, when my parents, they were over in South Lawrence, she was their state rep too. I don't know if that's still the case, but she was.
Now, the district, actually, because David Teresi's base was sort of Lawrence, and that's the popular opinion about why he lost the election, because his base changed. But I don't know.
And the other thing that's interesting, you speak of gerrymandering. What's going to happen in? I still think it's hard to believe, but at least it is. The sun now sets that any Republican would be elected to Congress out of the state. One never knows, but it's highly, the only times that we've elected Republicans of late in the last 25, 30 years, the only time we've ever done that is due to, the situation here with when Peter Torkelson was elected. I think Blute was a Republican. But
it's funny that Torkelson, if you don't mind my injecting here, Massachusetts Republicans though aren't like Republicans elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Peter Torkelson, I would say that on every measure was this is like a dirty word to Republicans, but it was as liberal as the next Democrat in this state. I suppose, how much credit do you give voters, I guess is the question I have. Do voters know that, yes, he shares my values, Representative Torkelson, but he can vote for leadership in Washington, and I don't want him doing that. I don't know that voters make that next step.
I think today they would vote with the leadership, but then again, don't forget when Torkelson was in, there was different leadership in the House. And also, I think Peter Torkelson, as good of a guy as he was, I'll confess I voted for him because the Democratic opposition, that was around the time Nick Mervulis was going to prison, and
I know where you're going,
Barbara Hilt, I think, was not palatable to most voters.
Now, that's interesting. And then, there's another situation like this, and I'm not going to ask you where you stood on it, but what year was it? 1990? I'm getting old, but the Democrats nominated John Silber for governor, and the Republicans nominated William Weld. Yeah. A lot of Democrats crossed and voted for Weld. So I suppose it is possible that values do matter more than the label next to a name. But
we trust Republicans singly. We don't trust them collectively here in Massachusetts. I guess that's the way you look at it, because...
Well, can I steal that line? I like that. That's a great description of what's going on.
We elected Paul Cellucci. We elected Joe Malone to be the state treasurer. And when we had to fill a vacancy, we elected Scott Brown, but I think that's a campaign that's going to be discussed for the next century. Why did Scott Brown win the Senate seat in Massachusetts? And it was basically the state, I'm forgetting her name already. That's a senior moment.
I mean, Martha Coakley?
Yeah, Martha Coakley, yes. Ms. Coakley, good person, good AG, but she counted chickens before they were hatched. And that's what cost her the election. Instead of going out campaigning at football games or whatever, she was down in Washington trying to arrange her.
I have another theory, and I'm probably the only one with it, but if you've heard it elsewhere, you can flag it. You know, there are a lot of Democrats who are not happy with Martha Coakley, the prosecutor, because Martha Coakley was tough on crime.
Yes.
And she was so tough that some party leaders went to jail. And I have to say that I don't think I've ever heard anyone else discuss it, but I think some Democrats did not support Coakley because she was a law and order, almost Republican. And, you know, whatever the dynamics were, enough votes were siphoned off, because I don't know that we would have predicted it before. And since Scott Brown, I don't think we would predict it again. But, you know, voters have a way of surprising us, too.
One never knows.
And maybe one shouldn't know, right?
We vote for the man or woman we like best. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Now we have
preferred.
Yeah, we have one declared candidate.
We preferred Mr. Brown to Martha Coakley. We preferred, Peter Torkelson to Barbara Hilt or Nick Revulis. I forget who the candidate was. But then again, it's going to be interesting, I think, in 2022, the next census, we're very likely to lose a congressional seat again, unless there's a surge of 2 million people moving into Massachusetts. We're likely to lose another congressional seat.
Good points, and
in
that
apportionment, and I'm wondering, who's going to lose their seat? Now I'm thinking Nikki Songus is ready to retire. She may be ready for retirement then in 2020. I don't know. I'm also thinking Haverhill has gotten the worst of all worlds, because
we've moved between districts a couple of times, right?
Right, we've moved between districts, and we're on the far edge of each district. And I don't know if there's a viable congressional candidate in in this area, Haverhill.
It's funny that you just reminded me. I suppose someone from outside the area who may have moved here or listening to this program or listening online are thinking, well, what district are they talking about? Torkelson and Songus. Well, yeah, we were in both of them, folks.
Yeah, we were.
So because
and then I saw the Eagle Tribune was complaining that Andover was split, and I said, to be honest with you, I'd like to live in a town that was represented by two different congressmen.
There are a lot of advantages.
I said I lived on a street that was represented by two different state reps.
No, good point. Good point. Now,
so I don't know. I mean, if they split Haverhill in two, that would be one thing. But the problem is, it would be wonderful if some candidate somewhere in this part of the Merrimack Valley, was a viable state rep, a viable congressional candidate. I'd like to see that.
Oh, very interesting.
I truly would. And when you talk about the state budget, well, you have to remember, a lot of people, you can all scoff at this, okay, and I'm sure people throw brickbats at me. But Massachusetts used to be one of the higher states for taxes. Given the services that are extended, we have one of the lower tax rates in the country now. 5.15, and the sales tax is not broad-based, and our property taxes are moderate. They're not ridiculously cheap, but they're moderate compared to New Hampshire, where they have the highest property taxes in the nation. Yes, there's no state income tax, but there are corporate taxes up there, which is why a lot of New Hampshire's workforce have to leave the state to go to work every day.
That's right. That's right.
So I don't know. I kind of think, sure, there's waste, sure, there's mismanagement, sure, there's sometimes problems, but on the whole, I think we're all right. We do all right here.
No, actually, and I'd like to have. I've asked, and seems to be some communication issues sometimes. But when I talked with Representative Linda Dean Campbell, something she said on the campaign trail last year surprised me, and I was very interested. And she talked about, income inequality. Well, it's pretty bad here in Massachusetts. This isn't something you find, yes, it's in other states, but you wouldn't expect it here. But it's a very big problem here, income inequality. And I'd like to have her on the program, but I think her staff, I'm going to guess, was afraid I was really calling because of the pay raise they voted themselves and wondering if it was a gotcha type thing. But really it wasn't. I'm really curious about her views on income inequality, because that's not something you think of here.
There is income inequality in Massachusetts.
No, it makes perfect sense that there is.
But that's one of the penalties of having a prosperous economy. You are going to have people who are very well off.
I mean, I don't know if you've been to, I imagine you have, but Boston Seaport District, that is conspicuous wealth. It's conspicuous. I mean, a $4 million studio condo in one of those towers. What?
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
I mean, of course, the lap of luxury. You got the concierge, and you can get your plane tickets from your lobby, I guess. But wow.
Yep. I don't have to get my plane tickets from the lobby. I just print them out on my printer, my laptop, and my printer.
Yeah, I suppose there are other. Yes, you're right. That's actually more convenient.
I don't need no stinking concierge. But the thing is, yes, that is one of the byproducts. But I know the affordable housing thing. When I was working with Boston 2024, that was one of the complaints we had from people.
Oh, good point. That's right. You were in the thick of that.
We were trying to emphasize, well, I remember saying to a couple people, why don't you join our effort? Because you've got a legitimate concern that you want to bring, that should be brought to the table. And I think a lot of people who are involved in Boston 2024 were also concerned about that.
Oh, very interesting.
And you look at some of the projects that were going on, the South Coast Light Rail that would go down to New Bedford Fall River. That would open that whole corridor up to development, which would create, hopefully, affordable housing, very much like the Merrimack Valley was in the 80s.
Oh, good point. You're a good point.
This is what we were saying, that, what you do, you build that light rail with a few stops along the way, and you've got new developments that people can afford. But the seaport, a lot of people are, look at that. Yes, it's fantastic. Yes, I've been to the Seaport District many times. And that was a positive byproduct of the Big Pig.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, interesting observation.
Paid for it. I argue 128, that reopened 128 for business because of the easy access to Boston. We were spared a lot of the problems in the last recession because of that. My job is technically on 128. You can get to Boston from there to the airport. It opened Logan Airport for cargo and commercial, reopened it for commercial and cargo business. And, the Seaport District, And I don't know how many jobs are generated. You talk about, the wealth of the community, but how many private sector jobs permanent jobs have been created as a result of the seaport being built? It went from being an industrial wasteland to something fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good question.
With that, Tim.
There's a lot of service jobs. Obviously, there were construction jobs. I think the thing is almost built out now.
Pretty much.
I don't know what's left, but I was surprised. And I have to say, I don't know what it is they do differently there, but they can put up a skyscraper in less time than it took us to put up Harbor Place. And I'm not joking about the 40 years. I'm talking about in real construction time.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was just shocked.
As a matter of fact, when we were working on the Olympics 2 years ago, that's where our meetings were. And every Saturday I was down in the Seaport District, and it just amazed me. what had been done since the times I worked in Boston up until like 1995, 96, when I stopped work. That whole area was an industrial wasteland.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It was
industrial wasteland, and now it's prosperous. That's not necessarily a bad thing. GE's brought 900 jobs in. Amazon's there, and God knows what else is down there. But it's a pretty awesome place to go and to be, and pretty awesome place to go. So.
Good points all. Well, thank you very much for sharing and commenting tonight, Greg, on the program. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
All right.
I enjoyed the guests from Methuen there. They were great, and pat them on the back for the job they do.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much. I hope they're still listening. All right.
Okay.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. All right, late for break. I've been pretty good tonight. I was on time for almost everything. But do you still have that queued? Let's take a very, very brief break, and then we'll wrap up the hour with more of your calls and questions. 978-374-1900. Don't forget birthday cakes and Kimball Tavern Antiques. We'll talk more in a second.
Open mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
The Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom turns out local programs every day and night. Tune in for local news, Community Spotlight, and the Open Mic Show. 97.9 WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
Suspense, a weekly anthology of notable melodramas from stage and screen, fiction and radio, presented every Monday night to bring you to the edge of your chair, to keep you in suspense. Listen to the new Suspense with a company of Hollywood actors and surprising guest stars, Monday nights at 10, with encore performances at 1 a.m., right here on WHAV. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamoa. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. 4 minutes before the hour on 97.9 FM WHAV. This is the Open Mic Show. I'm your host, Tim Coco, General Manager of WHAV. You know, it's a good time, I suppose, if you have questions about WHAV's operation, about how the station sounds, how far it gets, what its plans are for programs. You can do that, too, probably better after the news at the top of the hour. But that might be something you might want to get into. 978-374-1900. Let's just recap a couple of things. Birthdays and anniversaries. If you or someone you know is having a birthday or a wedding anniversary in August, we work the following month, then simply call the program, 978-374-1900, and just greet the person, wish them a happy birthday, wish yourself a happy birthday or a happy anniversary, and the recipient will win a 7-inch cake from Albidee's Second Generation Italian Bakery, 140 South Main Street. That is, the recipient will win if their name is drawn from the hat, literally a hat. The hat goes back to the days of Jack Bevilacqua, who wanted to own a cowboy hat and could find one only made in China. It's been a kind of a not-so-private joke here ever since. Maybe Jack's listening right now. I know he keeps up to date with what we do. But in any event, so listen, you must know someone with an August birthday or a couple with an August anniversary. You know, they might be nice. If they win, they'll share a piece of that cake with you, and it's delicious from Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street. Another off South Main Street, great friend of the Open Mic Show, Kimball Tavern Antiques. Kimball Tavern Antiques. Oh, by the way, did whatever happen to that call? I'm sorry, do we still have that caller? Oh, I don't have that call. All right. I forgot all about it. I apologize. Was this our friends from Kimball Tavern? Oh, okay. No. All right. So there's the corporal, I believe, was on the line. I'm sorry. I forgot about you. I got in the thick of it. No, I would never take my listeners for granted. I just don't see the red light when my face is pointing the other way. I know some of you would rather I just turned around, but that'd be better for those of you watching on television. So after the top of the hour, Corporal, if you want to give us a call back, welcome your call. But anyway, back to Kimball Tavern Antiques. They're offering a $10 gift certificate, same as cash. If you can answer this question, be the first to answer it. Name the man on Lowell Avenue who collected hubcaps. First name, last name, and nickname. Now, we already answered two of those. First name, Charlie. Nickname, Keista. And yet another hint, the last name begins with an A. All right, so folks, you have so many possible ways to win this thing. So if you name the person who collected hubcaps on Lowell Avenue, you can win a $10 gift certificate to Kimball Tavern Antiques. Again, as we've said, if the item is $10 or less, the item is free. If it's more than 10, then it's $10 off. It's very simple. WHAV, by the way, receives no remuneration of any kind. These are simply gifts to listeners from members of the community. All right, it is apparently 8 o'clock. We are going to break away for local news with guess who's doing that. I don't know how I managed to do both at the same time. And then we'll have local weather back with your calls after that.
Open mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
It's 8:01.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. Two witnesses, each with information about the teens accused of starting a 7-alarm blaze at a factory building on Stephen Street in 2015, will be honored and receive rewards Thursday morning at the Water Street Fire Station. Ron Meehan of Massachusetts Property Insurance Underwriting, also known as the FAIR Plan, will present rewards as part of the Arson Watch Reward Program, said Jennifer Meath, Public Information Officer for State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski. One witness walking home from a store saw and videoed the fire in its earliest stage and also saw 3 of the 4 teens ultimately convicted of setting the fire. The second witness heard information at school about who had set the blaze and came forward, Ostrowski's office said. 19 fire departments, including Haverhill, contained the flames Sunday, September 20th, 2015, at the former Hudson Machinery Company, 14-30 Stephen Street, Haverhill, over a 24-hour span. Besides Meehan and Ostrowski, those expected to attend Thursday's ceremonies are State Police Detective Lieutenant Paul Zipper, Commanding Officer, Fire and Explosion Investigation Section, Haverhill Fire Chief William Liberty, and other city officials. A second presentation at 11 a.m. at Lawrence Fire Headquarters similarly honors a witness to a 2016 fire at a 6-story brick mill building there that caused $100,000 in damage. The witness in the Lawrence case was a formerly homeless woman who helped to arrest a serial arsonist who was charged with setting 2 car fires, a house fire, the mill fire, and 2 dumpster fires, a statement said. Mount Washington's Walter Budger Wysocki Park could soon be converted from passive recreation to an active children's park with swings, modern seesaws, a jungle gym, and more. That's the vision of Wysocki's son Bob and Thomas White, one of 70,000 children who call the Haverhill Boys Club home. Wysocki and White met Thursday with David Van Dam, Mayor James Fiorentini's chief of staff, to discuss possible upgrades. White explained the plan.
We always wanted it to be a place for the kids to come play because, Walter was so dedicated to the children of Haverhill. We wanted the park dedicated to him to have the kids come there and use it as often as possible.
When the park was rededicated last year, Fiorentini expressed interest in having more places for children to play. Wysocki and White plan to have a professional design of the park, which is bounded by Curtis, Tremont, and Central Streets and Park Avenue. Van Dam confirmed there may be federal community development block grants and other money to make the project a reality. For White, now of Merrimack, the project carrying on Wysocki's vision is personal.
I just know that all he did for the community, and, I grew up going to the Boys Club Camp Tasker up in Newton, New Hampshire, and, he did a lot for the kids of Haverhill.
Wysocki Park was first named 17 years ago with the support of former Mayor James Rorak and the City Council. The site was selected because it was near Wysocki's childhood home on Arch Street.
We got that park dedicated to Walter Wysocki, who headed up the Boys Club for 57 years here in Haverhill. He's got the longest tenure of anybody with the Boys Club in the history of the country.
The park was originally refurbished with money donated by William Cavallaro, founder of the former Camelot Systems. A monument was installed and a flagpole, benches, picnic tables, and trash receptacles were placed. At first, however, it was subject to vandalism, White said. He said there were frequent calls to Christopher Goodrow of the Essex County Sheriff's Department to bring in teams and equipment to clear graffiti. Then, he added, the city administration and Haverhill Police instituted a curfew, installed a camera, and began patrolling it more frequently. There have been no incidents in the last few years.
The city has taken some steps, and the vandalism has really been curbed.
Interestingly, the former Washington Street Park was, more than 100 years ago, to be the centerpiece of a fashionable neighborhood, White explained.
Group of developers from Boston that wanted to make that like a high dollar development. And they were trying to attract people from Boston. Since the train came up through here, they're trying to attract people from Boston to move up here and advertise this as a ritzy section of town.
The park was to be the Silver Hill Aqueduct to provide well water for the development. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Tim Coco.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Nick Harper. The U.S. Secret Service is pushing back against a claim by President Trump's lawyer that the agency would have prevented any nefarious meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer. An Australian national has been shot dead by police in the U.S. state of Minneapolis, allegedly after reporting a crime. And it's claimed the United Arab Emirates is hacking Qatari media sites as part of the regional crisis.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Gary Bess with Wave Weather. It'll stay clear to partly cloudy for the Merrimack Valley through the night. Low temperature mid-60s by morning. Some partial sun, but a lot of clouds developing Tuesday. Could be a shower or thunderstorm, low to mid-80s. Showers end Tuesday night, upper 60s. Mostly sunny, very warm and humid Wednesday, 85 to 90. This is Gary Best. Your next Wave Weather is coming up in 30 minutes.
Stay informed each day with local news, coupled with FSN's worldwide coverage. 97.9 WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net.
WHAV, Merrimack Valley, open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. And 7 minutes after the hour on the Open Mic Show, 97.9 FM, WHAV. All right, open lines now for the remainder of the program. 978-374-1900. Thank you so much. I just saw an item. This happens every year. It's hard to believe a year has gone by already. Haverhill Police National Night Out. Haverhill Police is one of the many departments that participate in this national program, National Night Out. And that's going to be Tuesday, August 1st at Swayze's Field, 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And there are hot dogs and hamburgers, face painting, a magician, music, inflatable amusements, a smokehouse. Now, is that where you, make food, or is the smokehouse like a plaything? I don't know anything about this stuff. And a water park. Well, I think maybe that's part of what's already there, but it's a free event. Free. Haverhill Police National Night Out, Tuesday, August 1st. I know many of you are watching on WHAV's Facebook page in high definition. Am I not on screen? All right. Yes, that's called operator error, but that's okay. I think Chris is just sick of seeing my face. Maybe some of you are too. So, but anyway, he gets to see through the glass. So we'll see how that goes. But open mic show, let's see what we have. Wow. 1,100 of you are watching on your Facebook page. 1,124 people on Facebook. Really, that's amazing. Facebook has created quite a platform. I hope it doesn't compete with FM radio, but I suppose people, you do want to see what I look like. All right. How many people are throwing things at their TVs? I'm not sure. All right. Birthday cakes, anniversary cake, come on. Some of you must know someone or yourself having a birthday in August or an anniversary in August. Call 978-374-1900. Wish that person or yourself a great day. And you could win a free 7-inch cake from Albie D's second-generation Italian bakery, 140 South Main Street. And then, of course, the $10 gift certificate of Kimball Tavern Antiques is still available. I don't know if our judges are away. I think one of them spends some time at the beach in the summer. Maybe they want to offer some more input, or they're just going to hold out. I don't blame them. It's their prize. Hold out and see if someone can win that. So let's talk a little bit more about current events. I see quite a bit of comments at WHAV.net, which is your text version of WHAV News. Many people are commenting on the what's sure to be an exciting race for state representative. Paul Magliacchetti, a member of the school committee, is the only one who's formally in the race. We expect to hear some more tomorrow from some other candidates who wanted the weekend to mull it over. And, we heard some of those names. Sean Toohey, Scott Wood were among those mentioned. City councilors Thomas Sullivan and Andy Vargas. Those are all really, for the most part, rumors for the time being. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about it. But it isn't the most glamorous job, freshman state rep, having to go to Boston every day. The pay is not the same for committee chairs and that kind of thing. So it's starting over. But it is, I guess, technically a part-time job, at least some of the year. So, although I guess the staffs, the people who answer the phones, they're there all the time, full-time schedule. So, it's not like you're not being served. But maybe someone has a comment or a question, or maybe just wants to give well wishes to State Representative Brian Dempsey, who's leaving the House in September. Not the end of his term, leaving the House to join ML Strategies in Boston. Maybe one of you want to talk about that. Perhaps another subject you'd like to discuss is the governor signed the state budget today. He had a statutory time frame to sign it. He did sign it, and he cut a lot from it. Make sure you listen to WHAV News tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. WHAV News is on every half hour from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then there's a broadcast at 11 o'clock as well. You'll hear what some of those cuts are and how they affect Greater Haverhill and vicinity. Now, normally, frankly, our legislative delegation overrides the governor's cuts. And I imagine, I have no facts here to back this up, but every year it happens, the legislature overrides the governor on most of those cuts, and they're in the budget. But the governor has a secret weapon that they can't override, and that's called 9C. It's a chapter of state law where the governor can declare an emergency, and he can cut in a way that the legislature can't put it back. So maybe Governor Baker will do that. Maybe there won't be an override vote, but I suspect there will be. So, maybe you have a thought on that. A lot of those are called earmarks, as they used to say at the federal level, but it's true at state level as well. Legislators have pet projects. They say, well, our town needs a new library, our city needs an arts center. These are real examples that are in the state budget that the governor did cut out by veto. He has a line item veto. That is something apparently not available to the President of the United States, but is available to most governors, and Massachusetts has the line item veto as well. Maybe there's some things you'd like to see cut from the budget. Maybe there are some things you'd like to see added to the budget. 978-374-1900. I think you guys are going to make me really work for this last, we're down to about 16 minutes. Make me work for that. I will say I'm very, very pleased with our guests from Methuen Police earlier tonight, Jennifer Burns, Community Engagement Specialist, and Sergeant Jack Walsh. They are part of the CARES program, Community Addiction Resource Engagement Services. And if you saw that, you have a sense of what it was, but I'll quickly summarize it. This is a way that they are working to address the addiction problem, not just opiates, but other kinds of addiction, in a way that benefits the people in Methuen. There are, of course, similar programs in other cities and towns on both sides of the border. And I mentioned specifically, I personally did an interview with District Attorney Jonathan Blodgett, was very impressed with his diversion program. There's something called prosecutorial discretion, where the prosecutor can decide whether or not some cases go forward, even after an arrest. And District Attorney Blodgett's office was seeing that there are some first-time offenders, maybe someone who can be saved, that if they served a jail time might actually become worse off, hardened criminals worse off. I think it's a debate probably some of you would have with me about it, but hard to say. You heard Sergeant Walsh himself say tonight that you cannot arrest oneself out of the opiate crisis. We heard a caller tonight who lost a child to the opiate crisis. So clearly, it's good to try some of these things, and Methuen is doing it, and we're very, very grateful that they were here on the program. Now, if you don't want to talk about the impending state rep race, well, remember there's also local races. In Methuen, former senator and former president of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce, former state police trooper, former public safety secretary, that's all the same person, and that is Jim Jajuga. He's running for mayor in Methuen. In Haverhill, so far anyway, no competition for Mayor James Fiorentini. But it looks like we have enough people running for city council and school committee to require a preliminary election. By the way, that's kind of a good aside. Preliminary versus primary. If it's a party election, it's a primary. If they're all unaffiliated, Haverhill does not require affiliations. They're in a preliminary election. So we have enough people. Let's see if they all file their papers. That's coming up in August when the papers are due. Off the top of my head, I think it's August 1st, but there's some days where they have to be certified by the Board of Registrars of Voters. Maybe one of you is considering running for city council or school committee. It's going to be a more interesting year than had been because a school committee member, Sean Toohey, has said he's not going to seek re-election to the school committee, but rather seek election to the city council. And I suppose it'll get even more interesting if he also decides to run for the vacant state representative seat. Always interesting around election time. If you have a thought on that, please keep it clean and nice. 978-374-1900. I'd like to take a break, but Chris is grabbing the phone. So, but we do have Community Spotlight. If Chris can multitask, we'll go to Community Spotlight, and we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show in just a second.
Open mic!
Frank Kamoa and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. If you're enjoying this program, call and become a 97.9 WHAV FM member right now, or visit WHAV.net. Your membership helps keep vital community services on the air.
97.9 FM, WHAV.
Catch the wave!
Hi, Tom Bergeron here. I started at WHAV in 1972. And look, WHAV's still here, but it won't be if you don't help support it. Go to WHAV.net. Become a contributor. Keep us going.
Community Spotlight!
Tattersall Farm, 542 North Broadway in Haverhill, invites all bird watchers to break out their binoculars for a July 22nd bird walk led by Dave Williams of the Joppa Flats Education Center and the Brookline Bird Club. Williams will narrate a 90-minute walk starting at 8 a.m. throughout the Tattersall's 150-acre property, paying special attention to nesting boxes installed by farm volunteers. Walkers are encouraged to wear long pants to prevent exposure to ticks. To register, contact Kathy Bresnahan at 978-374-2390, extension 11. A $5 donation is suggested. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Frank Kamola.
WHAV Open Mic!
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Frank Kamola. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. All right, apparently some listeners want to save me the embarrassment of going on and on when there are no calls or questions. So we have on the line David Godswood, WHAV historian, and amazing how fast he comes up with facts when we need them. Now he's coming up with a rescue, I think. David, welcome to the show.
Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy watching you squirm.
Oh, that's right, yes, okay. Well, that's we went to school together. And that wouldn't be the first time he said that. Okay, so...
Yeah, great. There goes my train of thought right out the window. I'm going to pick your brain even further. What was the first year you worked with Scotland Hill Children's Theatre?
I'm trying to think if that was...
and of course, for the audience, that was the local children's theater that was run by Barbara Smart.
I'm trying to remember.
Was that at the Hannah Dustin School?
Was that when we were at Constantino or when we were at Haverhill High?
That was Constantino.
Oh.
Well, that's where the summer theater was. I don't know where you were at that point. I went to Constantino.
No, I went to Constantino. I seems to me it would be what was the show I was in? Something Look Before You Leap.
Look Before You Launch. That was 77, the summer of 77.
Okay, so that would bring me down into what, sophomore year?
I really
Well,
don't.
no, they didn't
discuss
call
age.
it sophomore year. They would call it 7th grade or 6th grade or something like that, yes.
Yeah. Now, the reason I asked that is because the summer before that was the bicentennial, and the school system did a incident on the Schuylkill, which was a Valley Forge, Haverhill at Valley Forge, which was actually something that happened, which I probably need to write up for Wavelength at some point, but that's a different story.
Yes, I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you.
In fact, it was Nehemiah Emerson, who was a descendant of Hannah Dustin at Valley Forge. And I'm pulling stuff out of thin air at this point, by the way.
Good.
But my point is, we also did a summer show, which was a spoof of Sherlock Holmes. This is the year before you were there. And the gardener of the mansion was a real young kid. It really had a decent speaking voice, but he really came in late. We really couldn't get him a juicy part, but he did well with the part he has. He was a little fellow named Brian Dempsey.
Really? I don't think I know that.
Oh, now you do.
And so does everyone else. So what was his role?
I believe he played the gardener.
Now, wait a minute now. So he would be younger.
Yes.
Much younger.
I've been trying in my head. I don't know how old he actually is. That's more your specialty since it's politics.
I'm actually, because I could be wrong. I think he's 6 years younger than we are. But, you know, that makes a big difference in school. It doesn't make a big difference now.
Yeah.
So
well, let's see.
He was
if
a
it
young
was
gardener.
76, that would have been, we were sophomores, so he would have been 7th grade or so. 6th or 7th.
All right. So, Brian, do you remember this? You know, he probably doesn't want to remember, just like I don't want to remember.
Well, we all black out certain parts of our childhood. Mine mostly involves singing on stage, but that's a different story also.
Was it last year that the Haverhill High School senior play was Arsenic and Old Lace?
I don't know.
And, of course, that was the play we were in.
And it's actually one of the few plays that I would consider coming out of retirement to do again. Fortunately, I don't have to play the hero anymore.
And Jim Bassey was in that play, and his mother just passed away. We express our condolences. Jim Bassey's done very well for himself, too, in New York City. Is that right?
He has indeed. A highly respected composer, accompanies various people on Broadway and on performances, cabaret. Basically, if they got a piano, he's there.
No, he is quite talented. And, you know, I guess it goes to show that anyone who's skeptical about Haverhill Public Schools can turn out some great people.
In spite of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still here, but Jim Bassey's in New York. Tom Bergeron's in Hollywood. You're in Florida.
I'll tell a story out of school, and I won't mention names, but when Jim was in high school, he was taken aside by a professional instructor who shall remain nameless, and I think you know who he was anyway. And he was told, yeah, you're pretty good at music, but there's no career in it. You need to get yourself a teaching degree, because the only way to make money as a musician is to teach it.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know who you mean, but yeah, I suppose, I'm not saying that was bad advice, because, you know, the odds of success certainly are against people, but it's too bad that it could have discouraged a great talent.
One, I find it discouraging, but two, it's a little condescending, because you have to assume that at some point he never noticed the level of talent that he was working with. It's like telling Brian Dempsey, yeah, I know you like public speaking. Why don't you get yourself a nice job first, and then you can do it all you want, maybe run for school committee.
Well, yeah, and funny, actually, the only election Brian's ever lost was school committee, I think.
Yeah.
Good point.
I mean,
Good point.
I think there's a difference between being realistic and being supportive, and I think at some point that line gets crossed too often.
Yeah, I have to say, I think many would agree. Some will disagree, maybe, but you know, sometimes we put our parents, we put our teachers on a pedestal, and you know, they can be wrong sometimes. And sometimes a little disconcerting when that happens, and we all probably have a memory of when someone who was very important to us did something that disappointed us, and I guess that just goes with the frailties of being a human being.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, that's right, David. You're a super being. Actually,
Yes,
if I recall, you were the avenging angel.
If I recall, when we graduated high school, in order to do so, you had to pass 4 years of English, pass 4 years of gym, and take 1 year of history. That's all you needed to get out of the school.
Actually, I don't credit David enough, but in many ways, he got me into radio.
I told you had a face for radio.
Yeah, that was the line, I think it was. But no, we had to do a project for humanities. We were going to do an 8mm film. That was the high tech of the time. We were going to do an 8mm film of some drama, except neither one of us knew how to load the film in the camera. It turned out there wasn't any, and suddenly we had no project on due date and decided to do a radio show. That is the God's honest truth, as Mrs.
And I have been fighting deadlines ever since.
Well, you carried us to the end of this one. I appreciate that. But
well,
you're going to be coming up soon, I understand, and maybe appear as a guest on the open mic show.
Well, I have been there before, so there really isn't a great deal of demand to see me yet again, but we'll worry about it when I'm up there. I'm going to be up at the Necronomicon, which is a H.P. Lovecraft horror and literature conference. And I've got to present a paper, so I'm going to definitely be there. I can't phone that one in.
All right.
To finish it, it's not on deadline yet.
We wish you the best of luck at attending conferences we cannot pronounce.
Well, it's practice. Practice.
All right. Well, David, thank you very much for saving the day and sparing the listeners, more readings of our phone number.
Well, it's either that or we go to the Tom Bergeron thing.
That's right. The clothing labels. I'm ready.
Yeah, I've seen your ties. You really don't want to be announcing this back to people.
Well, I don't know. Building 19. What do you know? All right.
Made in Indonesia, 100% rayon. Do not stand near open fire.
Yeah, probably true. All right, David, thanks so much. We are now out of time. I appreciate your call.
Good night, Tim.
Good night. Thank you, David. All right, and thank you to Master Control, Cindy Driver, Chris Porter in Master Control, holding down the fort. Thank all of you for watching and listening to the Open Mic Show. One way or another, something should be on next week at this time. We'll see if it's me. We'll see you then.
Open Mic!
Join Frank Kamoa live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.
It's 8:31.
97.9 WHAV.